to another episode of Plan B Success. Who we have with us today is J.A. Plosker from Phoenix, Arizona. Now, J.A., I think that's how he's known, has several advanced degrees, has been an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, runs about 3 different businesses. So he's been a coach, he is a coach, a teacher, as well as someone who's reaching out to people and trying to help them. He also has his own podcast as well as his own books. So let's welcome him and we'll hear about him, his life, and everything that he does from himself. So J.A., welcome to the show.
Right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words.
Well, like you said, I've been through a lot of degree programs. I've been through a lot of careers, and I always tell people I really enjoyed going to school. I really enjoyed learning something new. And it just so happened that the things I was learning all along the way led me into different careers. So I've been a comparative religion and philosophy instructor. I've been an attorney. I've been a licensed therapist. And now I run a business where I write courses and trainings for large corporations. And underneath all that, I also had side interests in personal growth. So I've been studying meditation, mindfulness, ancient wisdom. I've studied the craft of writing and published books. And so I'm really just a person who's always loved to learn, and it's always led me down different paths of interest, different career paths. And it's really been a fun journey. I've really enjoyed learning new things and trying to fit into new careers. So I've really enjoyed it. That's what was so appealing about your podcast. I love this idea of plan A, plan B, plan C. It was really, really interesting.
That's awesome. So, when I look at your background, very diverse, right? On the one end, you have religion, spirituality, everything around that. And on the other end, you've been a social worker, being out there helping people. At the same time, you've also been an entrepreneur working on businesses as well. So do you see what you're doing today as the culmination of all of this coming together in some format?
Well, it's funny because all the things that I've studied through life, when I tell people about my background, sometimes people, even me too, we struggle to see how all these things fit together. And I think getting into that entrepreneurial mindset really has brought everything together. It's my legal background has really come in handy, of course, setting up corporations and thinking through all the potential pitfalls of starting a business. And my social work background, learning about society, learning about what people are really looking for out there and the help that they might need has helped kind of direct how I've wanted my businesses to go. And so all the things that I've learned have really, like you said, culminated in these little businesses that I've put together to help me try to figure out how best to help people and how best to set up these businesses for success. And yeah, I really do think that all these things I've studied have really come together in these businesses that I'm working on now. And like I said, it's really been fun in addition to being work.
When you look at your career, and if I don't know at what points of time you did what, but being an attorney versus a social worker, how did that come about? Like those are 2 different things. So how did that happen?
Well, it's, as I was growing up, I never, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And after I realized that, probably being a professional football player, baseball player wasn't going to work out, I realized that I just had so many different interests in so many different areas. And when I was an undergrad, I found this love for ancient wisdom and archaeology. And when I moved back home to Arizona, that led me to get a master's in comparative religion. And then from there, my interest was in bioethics and healthcare. So from there, it just seemed like a natural extension to go into law school. And after I graduated law school, I found that what I really enjoyed was working as a contract attorney, but also accepting invitations from local universities on the side to teach. Like I said, I've taught comparative religion, I've taught philosophy. So usually when I'm working in one area of business, I've always found or made the time to pursue something else. So even though I was working as an attorney, I also found time to teach. And then when I transitioned out of that, I realized how much I really enjoyed helping people, that side of the law, sitting down with clients and talking to them about their life more so than their legal issues. And that led me sort of into this direction of coaching and therapy. It was just a natural extension of that. So every time I'm working on one area, I always have an interest somewhere else. And I've been really lucky. I've been able to evolve those interests into other careers. So they seem diverse, but learning to write as a lawyer really helped me learn to write as an author. So there's always been something that I can gather from one area and apply it somewhere else. And I always spread that message when I'm coaching entrepreneurs. There's always a kernel of something in what you're doing now that can help you find your passion and make it into something else if that's what you really want.
And that's a pretty daring step too, to kind of give up on a career as an attorney and then go and do something else and then evolve into something else. Did you ever have doubts or any kind of apprehensions as you made these shifts?
For me, no. It was the law. I realized looking back on my life, from whatever you want to call it, just from hindsight, a spiritual perspective, whatever you want to call it, I always knew. I think when I got out into the world of lawyering, I think there was always a part of me that knew that that really wasn't going to be my last stop. And that's certainly not true for everybody. There's a lot of people that are working side jobs that realize going to court and being a lawyer is really what they want. But I had the opposite. And I think I always knew that at some point I was going to exit that, but use the things that I learned to help me build other careers and find other passions. So I never really had any regrets. I never had any second thoughts. I'm not always certain about everything in life, but that's something I'm pretty certain about. I never doubted it for a minute.
That's pretty awesome. I think at the end of the day, the worst thing that possible is having regrets. And if you can avoid that, then you're on the right path. So your businesses, three different businesses that you talk about, can you take us through them?
Yeah, I think as someone who has a lot of diverse interests, I wanted to formalize those in some way. And I think setting up for those of us listening in the US at least, setting up an LLC, setting up a business really adds an element of accountability and discipline, especially come tax time. So I first I wrote some books, and my first book, The Nobody Bible, was a book that I had been working on for years and years and years. And when it came time to publish that, I talk about all various different world religions and ways of bringing ancient wisdom into modern life. And I had some offers to publish that book, but I realized that I really wanted to have creative control over that. So I decided to set up my own press. And that press, Nobody Press, ended up putting out the Nobody Bible. It ended up putting out my next book in Audible Silence. It ended up putting out a journal, and it's going to be the house for all the different things that me and my wife create. And it gives it some formality out there. And so then the next business that I formed, well, actually, that was the second. The first business, though, that I ever had was setting up an LLC to house my instructional design business. I was helping clients to write trainings, and I realized it would be nice to bring that under one business. So I set this business up and write these courses and do writing consulting. So then I had the press, I had the writing consulting business, and then I set up my coaching business because I started working with clients. I say I work with seekers, sensitives, entrepreneurs, and authors. Well, I wanted my coaching business to reflect that as well. So I set up my coaching business. So I have these three businesses that I run, and each of them houses a different interest, and they all play off each other, but they all live in different spaces. So it's really given me some discipline. It's added a bit of formality to it, which for me was nice. And it's really been fun setting those up and managing them. I actually enjoy that.
And how long have you been running these?
Oh, the instructional design business I've been running for years, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. The press has been around since 2017, and the formality of the coaching business has been around about a year.
And what do you coach
Well, I
people?
work with people who are either trying to get a book out there. My wife and I actually have a lot of experience helping indie authors to figure out first how to get the kernel of an idea, then how to build that idea into something, and then how to design a cover, get it up on Amazon. So I do some of that. I also work with, I say, seekers and sensitives. So people who may identify as INFJs, INFPs, highly sensitive people, empaths. I work with those people to help reduce stress, reduce the anxiety that comes with that. I work with people looking to set up businesses. I work with people looking to reduce anxiety. So I'm kind of drawing from all those different areas of experience that I've had over the years and bringing it all together into this coaching business.
And how do you reach out to your prospects, or how do your prospects find you?
Usually it's by word of mouth. I found people, usually people will find me through social media. I had a podcast that's since ended that was called The Nobody Guide to Life. And my wife and I are going to be setting up a new podcast. And so usually I'll find people that have either heard me, seen me on social media, and sometimes through advertising too, like on Facebook.
Awesome. So tell us about your books, the books that you have written.
Well, the books are really an outgrowth of my personal growth. So I've been studying in the personal growth space with teachers for over 25 years. I've been studying ancient wisdom for over 25 years. And I realized that, at least for the first book, the Nobody Bible, that there is so much in ancient wisdom that we can connect to today if we just stop and think. So I go through Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Judaism, and I pull kernels out of those pieces of ancient wisdom, out of those ancient traditions. And I show how we can use that knowledge today, right in our everyday life, and build this bridge to the ancients. And that's what the Nobody Bible is about. And my novel, An Audible Silence, follows the story of a man who's really, really, really struggling in his life, and he's just about to end it all. And he gets a very unusual invitation to go to a cabin, and he ends up meeting an old college mentor there, and together they explore mindfulness, they explore meditation, they explore ancient wisdom and forgiveness. And it's really the journey of how this man rebuilds his life through ancient wisdom. So my books usually reflect that area of interest of my life. And it's writing them it's been cathartic, it's been therapeutic, and it's been wonderful to share that message with the world.
You also say that you yourself have experienced extreme stress, self-doubt, and all that, where your life came to a halt.
Right.
Can you talk us through that part of your journey?
Well, I've always been a nervous person, a stressed person. And I know maybe a lot of your listeners can relate to that. I just remember being in fourth grade, fifth grade, and struggling with this. And it was really difficult for me. And I became a nervous adult. And when I graduated law school in my mid 20s, it really all came to a head. And I was just completely frozen in time. And I had an experience with a teacher of mine. And I talk about this. I gave a TEDx talk, and I talk about this story because it's that life shifting. I sat with my teacher, and my teacher, he said, ask me any question. He said, and you'll have the ear of the universe, and maybe I can help give you an answer. Okay. So I said, should I continue to be a lawyer? And because that was crippling me at the time with stress. And he said, what you do for a living doesn't define you. It's only work. And he said, I'm going to bring that message to you somehow. So, okay. So I went home for about a week, just continuing to struggle. And out of nowhere, my dad calls me out of nowhere. And he says, hey, the strangest thing just happened. He said, I'm home alone here. I'm doing work in the house. He said, a man's voice just spoke to me and said, call your son and tell him it's only work. He said, does that mean anything to you? I don't know what that means. So it was in that moment that I realized that I was putting all my focus into one thing in my life that was really destroying my life. And I think for your show, this is really an apropos story because I realized that plan A wasn't working. I needed to start exploring plan B. I needed to find ways of expressing creativity and working that were more than just work. And that's when I really started to dive into other areas of exploration. It's when I really took on exploring ancient wisdom and mindfulness in deeper ways. And it unstuck me, and it didn't fix me, but it put me in a situation where I realized after an event like this, there was more to life. There was more I had to explore. And that really set off this journey of plan B, plan C, plan D, and harnessing all these other interests that I have.
You mentioned you're an INFJ and an empath. For the listeners, just so that they understand what you're talking about, can you walk them through what you mean by that?
Right. Well, so if you look at the Myers-Briggs personality types, and you take, there's a lot of things you could take online. A lot of people will end up in this, not a lot, actually. It's sort of a rare, not better or worse, just a more rare personality type, this INF personality type. And INF folks are, they're the advocate. They're the crusaders for justice. They're the people that can seem like introverts, but also sometimes have this extroverted side. And they're people who are really trying, at least in my experience with how I've lived it, trying to get more in touch with what's inside me and what's inside other people. And I really love that. I think that's why I was so attracted to law initially, because it's this fight for justice, this advocating for others. And the empath piece, or highly sensitive person piece, it's just something my whole life. I just walk into rooms and I take on the mantle of what other people are feeling so deeply that it can almost be crushing at times, for lack of a better word. So these are two sides of me that I've struggled with, and I realized that other people out there were struggling with it. So now what I'm doing is trying to help, through my coaching business, other people who struggle with this to figure out how to build a tool belt that they can carry with them so that they can learn to embrace these sides of who they are and live out of that body instead of trying to push it away. Because I think a lot of times people in these categories try to push that away when it's really actually a strength.
Absolutely. And in terms of the kind of people that you mentor, or the kind of people that you coach, do you do any kind of pre-qualification before you work with them, or how does that work?
Well, one thing I've learned about myself is I'm not really a great fit for everybody. So to me, coaching it's a service. So there's a 15-minute call that I'll do, and it's a free consultation where it's very honest. And we just have to be very honest with each other about what is this relate? Because coaching with me is not, I don't do this. I think some people like their coaches to be like, well, I'm going to go to this master and I'm going to be the student, and well, that's not, I don't, we're all a master of something and we're all perpetual students. So when you coach with me, it's a peer-to-peer session. So in that free 15-minute consultation, we talk through, what is it that you're looking to get out of this relationship? How do I operate? And is it going to be a good fit? And if it's not going to be a good fit, we're very honest about that. And we go our separate directions, and we go our separate ways, because it's an investment of time for both of us. It's an investment of money on the client's part, and people are investing, more importantly, their energy into it. And I want to make sure that it's something that's going to be comfortable for both of us. So that's really the pre-qualification. That you don't have to be an INF for a highly sensitive person, but I want to make sure that we're going to be a good fit.
Absolutely. So as far as your books are concerned, are all of these self-published? That's where you are with them?
Right. Yes. It was interesting for the Nobody Bible. Like I said, I was agented for that. That book had an agent for a long time, and I actually had offers to publish it. But when I ended up, plan B success, right? Plan A, right? A lot of times authors they want an agent and they want a publisher. Well, when I started looking through the contracts with my lawyer's eye, and I started to try to negotiate terms, I was finding resistance. And I realized that I was giving control over to this publishing house, control over content, control over distribution, control over pricing. And I realized that that wasn't the way I wanted to go. So I declined. And my wife, Melissa, and I, she's a brilliant web designer and graphic artist, and she has her own business in that. We moved forward and we put these books out ourselves. And you talk about no regret, Rajiv. I never once regretted that decision.
Awesome. And then, as far as marketing your books, how do you go about it?
Well, that's that's the big question for all indie authors, isn't it? I made an audio version of the book and started advertising that on various platforms. And it's not so easy to sell audiobooks, but I've really kind of enjoyed that process. For other books, I've used Amazon's platform to advertise. I've done a lot of advertising through Facebook and social media, but really where I've sold most of my books is through my speaking and through word of mouth. And I had some great advice years ago. An agent said to me, the book is not the thing. They said, you're the thing. The author is the thing. When people buy a book, they're a lot of times buying the author. And I've really found that to be true, that selling books is really about building relationships. And that's been the most fun, I think, of marketing the books, is getting to know my readers after they buy the books. And that's really been very rewarding.
Awesome. And for people who want to check out your different businesses, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, they can go to japlosker.com. And if you go to japlosker.com/links, you'll find links to my books. You'll find links to my fledgling YouTube channel. You can connect with me on Instagram at @japlosker. I'm always posting things on there about life and about mindfulness and the personal growth journey. So those are really the best places. But if they go to japlosker.com, it's really all there.
Talk to us about your podcast that you had and the one that you're bringing back now.
Well, I had a podcast called The Nobody Guide to Life. And the purpose of that show was to just talk to people about how to bring this, wisdom from the ages or things that might seem unattainable right here into everyday life. That's one of my big messages. That's the whole message of the Nobody Bible, and that was the message of this. So I would interview, there were some solo shows where I would just talk about how to meditate, how to practice mindfulness in 4 steps, things that people can use right now. But I would also interview bodywork practitioners. I would interview people who were into nutrition, and I would have them give us these little tips and tools that we can use right now, right in our everyday life. And so I decided to end that show at 100 episodes. And my wife, Melissa, and I are hopefully getting ready to launch our new podcast, which is going to be interviewing people and talking to them about their passion and their purpose, how they discovered it, and where they're going to take it next. So if people join, if you go to japlosker.com, you can download my free mindfulness quick start guide, and that'll put you on my mailing list. And we're going to be making that announcement soon through the mailing list when we're going to be launching our new venture. And we're really excited about it.
That's pretty awesome. So when you talk about, age-old wisdom, I'm sure you're looking at, everything that is there to it, whether it's from China or India or the Far East or Africa and such. What's been anything that you can share from your research of age-old wisdom that really caught your eye and kind of surprised you?
Well, first of all, that it's right here, that we call it ancient wisdom, but we're living it right now. So if you take a look at even something like the principles of karma, sometimes people will say to me, or students will say to me, this is such a mysterious thing, and I'll be like, well, think about it. If you are at work and you're getting into an argument with a coworker, but you decide to hold your tongue instead of saying something really mean, you've just interfaced with this ancient principle in a simple way right here. If you look at the 10 commandments, you can pick any of them. Don't envy. That was a favorite of one of my teachers. If you congratulate someone else on their success instead of getting jealous about it, you've just interfaced with a piece of ancient wisdom. love thy neighbor as thyself, the principles of karma, the Four Noble Truths, the yin yang, all of these esoteric ancient pieces of wisdom are really right here. They're right in our everyday life. And if we can live our life remembering these pieces of wisdom as we go through our day, it's transformative. It saved my life, which is why I had to write the book. But we, no matter who we are, can connect with ancient wisdom. And that is probably the most important message from that book that I could ever get out there. And the most important message about ancient wisdom. Just by living your everyday life, you connect with the wisdom of the ancients. And that's been life transforming for me, at least.
That's pretty awesome. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your life as well as your businesses and the pivots that you've taken that have shaped you to be what you're today. Before I let you go, one takeaway for the listeners, anything that you'd like to share?
Well, again, just keep exploring and explore in your own life, especially for listeners of your show. I think this show is a great service because it's a reminder that there can be a plan C and a plan B and a plan D. So if you explore the life you have right now, you just might be able to find things in it that can help you start a whole new adventure that you never even knew was possible.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today and wish you the very best as you go ahead with your podcast and your businesses.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.